Today we have Winged Victory on the podcast, and we're going to talk about the simplicity of how this mother finally stopped drinking, some of the fatal flaws common to those who don't make it or get caught in the relapse cycle. We're also going to talk about Boo's musings and the Boom Rethink the Drink community and lots more. Now, before we get into the show, I want to thank our audience for listening, and I want to let you know that you can take the next step on your journey by downloading my free ebook, and you'll learn the 7 practical tools to build a solid mental foundation and get your drink and drug use under control. And you can download that by going to insideaddiction.co.uk/foundation. Now, on to the show. Welcome, Winged Victory. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So to kick us off, I just wondered what advice you would give to the version of yourself that's still in the madness, drinking, and where you were at the time and what was going on for you.
Oh boy, that's a fantastic question. I really like the way that you put that. The advice that I would give myself when I was caught in the madness. Well, I just published a post that was a post that I edited from 10 posts by a member of my community, and she was talking about the practical things, like you're saying, the 7 practical things in your book, the practical things that she had done in the first 10 days of her sobriety. And I came up with the title, and the title is Demystifying Sobriety. Because I think that, to me, when I was caught in the cycle, when I was desperate to stop drinking for years and feeling ashamed and guilty and out of control and like I just could not stop drinking, I thought that there was this impossibility to it. You know, it was like a mystical, magical impossibility. And I was afraid that I might need to go to rehab, which I couldn't afford, and I was terrified of that prospect. And ultimately, I found that it was quite simply for me about acknowledging what was going on, honestly and openly, which I did on a website called Hello Sunday Morning. As a mother, I was not comfortable with the idea of going to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. I didn't feel like I had the time to go to meetings because I was taking care of my family. And I was able to find this online community, Hello Sunday Morning, on the internet. And I was able to, in essence, go to meetings on the computer in my kitchen. And so the first step for me was acknowledging publicly, in essence, with my first post on the Hello Sunday Morning website, exactly what I was doing, honestly, what I was doing. And then people immediately reached out to me in that community and said, you're just like me, you're going to be okay. And it demystified the whole thing, the impossibility of stopping. The community on Hello Sunday Morning demystified it. And so I would tell her 6 years before she stopped, because it took 6 years from the time I read Alan Carr's The Easy Way to Stop Drinking. It took 6 years for me to finally stop. I would tell her it's simple, but it's not easy. It's simple in that you accept that you can no longer drink, and you focus on the positive results of not drinking as opposed to focusing on the fear of changing your life, because it's terrifying, I think, for most people. Especially with alcohol, I think that alcohol is so innocuous to many people in society. We just think of it as part of living life fully. We drink. And if you find that you have a problem with drinking, it's humiliating, and it makes you the other. You don't fit. You become the square peg in the round hole. And I would tell her, it's going to be okay. You can break the status quo. You have broken the status quo in everything in your life. You've always been an out-of-the-box kind of person, and this is the next step to out of the box. Just admit to the problem and find help, which I did in this online community, which was also a very out-of-the-box kind of thing, because that was 5 years ago. Hello Sunday Morning was one of the first online communities where people were supporting each other in a non-AA kind of way.
Yeah, and it's really
That's a long, rambly answer.
No, that's an amazing answer, and it's interesting to get that perspective that isn't based on, like you say, the 12 steps, AA, rehab, that's based on an unconventional, in a sense, approach, although it's very, very popular nowadays, is that kind of idea of the community and taking accountability and vulnerability and sharing your story. And I just wondered, that woman 6 years ago, or that waited 6 years from when she first read the first Alan Carr book, what limiting beliefs did she hold on to that was holding her back from living sober and happy?
Limited beliefs. Let's see. Well, I'm 5.5 years sober now. So when I read Alan Carr, that was almost 12 years ago. And I was desperate to stop drinking at the time. What kept me from stopping? I read the book. It was very effective. I actually didn't drink for 24 hours. And that 24 hours was Thanksgiving. And my Thanksgiving celebration for the last 20 years, because I live in Portugal, I'm American, but I live in Portugal, has been a friend's Thanksgiving. So there are 20 of us and our children. We get together. We have this wonderful May kind of gourmet, great wines and everything sort of thing. And it was Thanksgiving Day after I read Alan Carr, and I went to Thanksgiving dinner, and it was like, I saw the light. I didn't need to drink. I was happy. I was content to not drink. There's almost a brainwashing effect to Alan Carr's book, which is the intention of it. And I had seen the light, and my brain had changed and everything. But then within 24 hours, I was drinking again, and it lasted for 6 years, and it was painful. There was a lot of painful stuff that happened in those 6 years. What is it that held on to me? Gosh, that's a difficult question. I have talked about this so much over the last 5.5 years. I felt like I had to drink. I felt like one of the premises in Alan Carr's book is that there is no such thing as an alcoholic. And it's a good premise. I don't use the word alcoholic to describe myself because I don't like the stigma that goes with the word. To me, sobriety is empowerment. It's not about thinking about what I was as a drinker, but what I've become and I'm becoming sober. It's just, a fireworks show of empowerment for me. So the word alcoholic doesn't work for me. The word addict doesn't work for me because they hold me back. But Alan Carr's premise is that everyone who drinks is in the process of becoming addicted, because alcohol is addictive. It's an addictive substance, and problem drinking has nothing to do with alcoholism. Problem drinking is drinking. Drinking is problem drinking. And it's a really, really good premise. But I was able to talk myself out of it within 24 hours because actually my friends who are all drinkers, they all celebrate the grape, I was the only one who drank like me. And I won't call that alcoholism, but it is different. There is a difference in the way that I drink. And I had to acknowledge that to stop, because otherwise I was able to keep justifying, okay, well, they're drinking and they're okay, and they're drinking and they're okay, and they're drinking and they're okay. I was high functioning. I was a good parent. I was a cooking mom. I was a professional in a high pressure situation. I was a performer, and And I handled all of that stuff. So it was very easy to justify continuing the behavior, even though it was hurting me. Because I just, there was this constant struggle in my mind of, I am normal. I should be able to control it. You know, it's such a complicated issue. You know, they say you're ready when you're ready. And it took me my behavior becoming truly dangerous for me to be ready. And that's what finally did it for me, was when things got really dangerous.
Yeah. And what did that danger look like in your life when you say things got very dangerous? Paint the picture for us.
Okay. Well, I was 48, 49. And I had been finding more and more that I was drinking to blackout. I didn't really understand what that meant. It was just that, you know, I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I wouldn't remember what I had talked about the night before. I wouldn't remember the conversations with my children or my husband. I would just wake up with a dry mouth thinking, oh, you know, I did it again. 1.5 bottles, 2 bottles of wine. And I found more and more that was happening. And I decided that I absolutely had to stop. And I started reading. I read some wonderful books. I read Lucy Roca's book. And I started reading some blogs, started thinking about drinking, and Sober at 60. And I kept trying to stop. But I kept getting to 5 or 6 days. And then I would decide for one reason or another it was okay for me to have a drink. And then I would have a couple of bottles. And then it would start all over. That went on for a few months. And finally, I fell down the stairs, and it was probably 7:30 in the evening, and I had had a little surgery to remove something from the corner of my eye, and I had decided, you know, just one last glass. I would have 1 glass of wine before the surgery to relax, and then I talked to the surgeon, and I said, you know, I had a glass of wine, and she said, oh, that's fine, that's okay. I said, is it okay if I have another when I get home? And she said, yeah, it's fine, just no more than 1 more, you know, because it'll thin your blood, and then you'll bleed a lot. But then by 7:30, I had 1.5 bottles on an empty stomach, you know, with whatever kind of chemicals were going through me from the surgery. And I went upstairs to go to bed, and I just, you know, basically fell down the stairs, and I was on the floor, and I couldn't get up. And my son was in the kitchen right around the corner from me. He was 11 years old. Luckily, my husband heard me, and he tucked me into bed, and my son didn't see anything, and he didn't hear anything. But I woke up the next morning with that feeling of what happened, not remembering anything. And I had a vague memory of being on the floor and kind of weakly calling for help. And I remembered hitting my tailbone and hitting my ribs on the stairs. And there was blood all over the pillow because my blood had thinned from drinking 1.5 bottles of wine instead of a glass. And I went downstairs to my husband, and I said, did this happen last night? Did I fall? And I said, did our son see me? And he said, yes, you fell. And no, he didn't see you. It's okay. You know, I got you into bed. And I said, no, it's not okay. It's not okay. You know, I was like, it's not okay. This has to stop. And I you know, in the last 5.5 years, that was the second to last time I drank. I drank 1 more bottle of wine the following night when I was starting my blog, and that was it. You know, I had to have my friendly goodbye after the ugly goodbye. So that was 5.5 years ago. But I've talked to so many people in the last 5.5 years who are professionals, they're responsible people, loving parents, really, you know, fitness people. You know, they get up and they work out, and they drink green tea all day, and they eat, you know, gluten-free diets and stuff like that. And they're drinking like that, you know. And now that we're doing Zoom meetings, we see each other, you know, and I see these beautiful people who are drinking like that. And it's such there's such normalcy surrounding it in our culture. There's so much normalcy surrounding drinking dangerously, and it's just okay. Everybody does it now and then. Get it under control. It'll be okay. But it's not okay. It's not okay. Wasn't for me. So it took that. It took that to snap me out of any sort of confusion that I might have that I really cannot drink.
If we rewind a bit on your story, I just wondered if you could tell us a bit about your childhood growing up, what life was like leading up to the point when, you know, like you say, you had your son and you fell down the stairs. What was life like before that?
Well, I grew up in a very loving family. There was always talk of the possibility of hereditary alcoholism in my family. It was part of our dialogue when I was growing up. My brother had serious mental health issues, and he had issues with drugs. My parents divorced when I was very young, and I was raised by my mom. My father was out of the picture. My brother died when I was 17. He died of what we thought was a suicide, but I learned a few years ago was drug related. He was addicted to inhalants, which in the 1980s was very common addiction because you could get, you know, a can of underarm deodorant cheap. It's a cheap high, and it was very deadly, very addictive. I actually learned about it from people in the HSM community. They explained it to me, and now that I understand addiction, I understand everything leading up to his death and why it happened. So there was that trauma, which was considerable. And but I'm a musician. My career was performing with the Symphony Orchestra, which I retired from in December at 55 with full pension. I'm very blessed. It was an amazing career. I loved it. I think that many people talk about having had very dangerous drinking patterns from the time they were young. I didn't do a lot of really dangerous drinking. I did enough, routinely. Nothing epic. I was working too hard. I was too busy, getting ready for my career, which was pretty intense. The thing that happened with me, I think, is a combination of hereditary and culture, because I was raised in, Christy Coulter wrote an amazing blog post a few years ago called Anjali that went viral and was translated into German and I think it was run in Time magazine or something. It was really a big thing. And she was talking about our culture. Christy Coulter is also, I believe, 55. She's the author of, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the book right now. Shoot. Nothing good can come of this. Yeah. She's my favorite blogger because she makes me laugh. I absolutely love her stuff. But she wrote this article called Anjali that went viral. It just went viral. And it was something that Ann Dowsett Johnson had also spoken about in her book, Drink. And there's another book called Her Best Kept Secret. I can't remember the name of the author either, but she also speaks about this. Our generation was raised with this Anjali perfume advertisement ideal. You're so young, I'm sure you've never seen it, but it's 1970s, and it's a sexy woman in a slinky dress, and she's got her hair all done, and she's got her makeup on and everything, and she comes in singing, "I can bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan, and never, never, never let you forget you're a man." And she's like, flipping around the frying pan, and our generation grew up with that ideal, that empowerment for us meant that we could do everything. We could be everything. We could be sexy. We could be professional. We could be the best mom on the block. And then with all the pressure to be everything and do everything, oh, we could be astronauts, we could be president, you know, and it was the first generation that was fed that. When they were feeding us, you can do and be everything, they then inserted wine as our rocket fuel, you know. And I bought that hook, line, and sinker, as did most of my friends and most of the women that I talked to who are my generation in the boom community now. And that had a huge influence on me, even though I have spent the last 25 years in a country where that ideal doesn't exist. In Portugal, wine is not sold the way that it is in the United States or in the UK. Wine is wine. You know, they haven't gotten into the image marketing of it. But I grew up with that ideal, and I got just enough of the Mommy's Wine Time push from the United States culture. And I ate it hook, line, and sinker, you know. That really, it was my right. It was my privilege, my right, my me time, my self-care.
Yeah. And you got to the point when, like you say, things were damaging your life. And I just wondered if there were any tools or tips or anything that sort of comes to your mind that you used to help you sort of overcome, if that's the right word, or learn to get your drinking under control.
Well, the first thing was Alan Carr's book, the very first thing that I read. And it's wonderful. Annie Grace's book, This Naked Mind, is very similar, and it's more contemporary. And her take on science and advertising is also more contemporary and really fantastic. So for me, the first thing with a book like that, the kind of book that gets you looking at alcohol differently and looking at our culture differently, you know, how are we sold this? Why do we think we have to have this? But it didn't completely work for me because of that idea that, you know, there is no such thing as an alcoholic, because I was different. I really was different. So I needed a different message. And I got that from a combination of books, and Dulcet Johnson's Drink. Her Best Kept Secret, I can't remember the name of the author right now. But that was wonderful. Read on just cultural basis of all of this. Lucy Roca's How to Live a Happier, Healthier, Alcohol-Free Life. She really focused on, okay, you're a mother, you love your children, you're a good mother, you're drinking yourself down the toilet. I was too. We can stop now. You know, and it was really, really enlightening to me to read that book. And she started, you know, she talks about the wine witch in that book and wine o'clock. And that kind of brought it to my attention that there were a lot of other people who had this time of day, you know, where this sort of beast took over, and, you know, this witch. Or then I read Belle's blog, Tired of Thinking About Drinking, and her personification of that beast is Wolfie in the Cherokee Wolf legend. There's a good wolf and a bad wolf, and, you know, which one is going to win? The one you feed. So stop feeding the bad wolf, and the good wolf gets stronger. That was really a powerful tool for me. I think Belle's blog, Tired of Thinking About Drinking, once I had read the other things, that became the thing that got me through the first 3 weeks with Belle's blog, and a blog called Sober at 60. And then occasional things. I read a couple of posts by Laura McCohen, who at that point was just a couple of years sober, and Holly from Sobriety. I read a couple of her posts that were also really powerful to me. But the biggest tool for me when I first stopped drinking was I joined this community online, Hello Sunday Morning, and what we did there, in essence, was blog. But it was thousands of people blogging together, and you know, we were all talking about the same thing. And the things that I read in that community that were just written by people like me, they weren't written by bloggers or internet influencers or authors or journalists. They were just written by people, teachers, nurses, mothers, military men, fathers, doctors, lawyers, just people, you know. And the honesty and the passion and the understanding and the commonality in that community, that was my tool, ultimately. That was it. And then the writing, because I'm not a writer, I'm a horn player. But I started writing because I found reading their writing to be so healing. And so I began to try to write as well. And that healed me and continues to heal me to this day.
Yeah, and you are the author and founder and moderator of Booze Musings, the blog. And as a mentor to thousands, I just wondered if you saw any commonalities to those who stay sober, or any fatal flaws that are common to those who don't make it or get caught in the relapse cycle.
That is such a good question, and people ask that all the time. In the first place, I don't consider myself to be a mentor. What we do in the Boom community is modeled on, it's a little different, but it's modeled on what we did in Hello Sunday Morning. What we did in Hello Sunday Morning is that Chris Rain was the founder, and when I first joined, he would write a post once a week, like a regular blog post, and you could read it or not as you wish, you could comment or not as you wish, but he was basically a member of the community. He was the founder, but he was a member of the community. He didn't necessarily have better ideas than anybody else. He just presented his ideas once a week. So what I learned in that community was that somebody who, if I was on day 15, I had something to offer to somebody on day 12, because I knew what day 14 it felt like for me. And there wasn't a mentor. It wasn't like the people with more experience were more mentors than, we were just a community, really a community. It was amazing. And that made it be about each of us taking responsibility for our own behavior and for helping the people coming up behind us. So we took responsibility for ourselves and we took responsibility for each other. So it's not so much mentoring, even though I started the Booze Musings blog and I started the Boom We Think the Drink community, even though I probably post more often than anyone else, it's not with the intention of being a mentor. It's with the intention of keeping the conversation going. Because it's a conversation in which we figure out how to take responsibility for ourselves. The other question about what types of characteristics you see in people who slip, that is almost an impossible question to answer. I have seen people say that they recognize when somebody is about to slip. And sometimes it's very recognizable. There's, sort of a denial that starts to build up, a flirtation with, well, maybe I'll just drink at this party, or maybe I'll just drink at that event, or this really is impossible. When that kind of stuff starts to be articulated, you know that the person is struggling, and you know that, they really need to talk it through. But I have seen people slip at 6 months. That seems to be a particularly treacherous time. That I had no warning at all. And I would like to say that that I know, that I can foresee it. That would be wonderful. But I can't say that. I can say that people who stick to it are the ones who they really understand that they have to make it their top priority, that it's worth making it their top priority, that and they do that day after day. I remember I got to day 18 or something when I first stopped drinking. I remember feeling like, maybe it was 5 weeks. I think it was 5 weeks. I remember feeling like, I've got this, I don't need to check into Hello Sunday Morning anymore. I'm good. I got this. I don't need to listen to any more of those stupid podcasts. I don't have to read any more of those blogs. I'm done with the books. I'm cool. I got this. And I thought, maybe you don't. Maybe you should step back a little bit and just keep your feet in it. And I'm 5.5 years sober, so that's good.
Yeah. Awesome. And like you say, it's good to kind of keep your finger on the pulse and to just pay attention to what's going on and how you're feeling. But I just wondered what advice you would give to someone who was struggling to get or maintain their sobriety.
To maintain their sobriety?
Yeah.
To maintain it. Well, gosh, we were talking about that yesterday. I think, one of the things that scared me about going sober was I identified going sober with, okay, you have to go to AA meetings forever for the rest of your life. And the idea of even going to one AA meeting to me was quite disturbing. It wasn't something that I wanted to do. I thought, okay, you got to go to AA meetings, you got to work the steps, you got to do the easy does it thing, and you got to be like really calm. and actually, I found for me and for many people, what maintaining sobriety seems to be about, whether you go to AA meetings or whether you get really involved in a community like our community, Where We Take the Drink, or Sobriety, or one of the other communities on the internet, and you stay involved, and you talk about life. You don't have to keep reiterating the last time I drank. You talk about the amazing things that are evolving in your life and how you see the world. And sometimes I just share an image of the flowers from my garden that I arranged in a vase that I'm getting so much pleasure out of. And when I share that picture, that's my going to an AA meeting today in my internet community. Because I share the picture and it gives people pleasure, so it's generous in that way. But every time I look at that picture, I remember how the garden makes me feel. And that I have this peace and tranquility that I didn't used to have, and this positive energy. So I feel like the sober momentum is about kind of continuing to look in and share out and reach back.
Yeah.
Actively.
And why do you feel that Boom works, and why is it so important that it remains ad and sponsor free?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, like I said, I'm retired. I retired in December, and I'm only 55, and I have lots of energy, and I have a full pension. So what I've been able to do for the last 4 years, I've put a tremendous amount of work into this. I've been able to do it without making it a money-making thing, because I don't need to make money. I'm okay. So it's a passion that I'm doing for me. I thought about adding Amazon links and accepting promotional blog posts that would make it easier to get action on the blog. But I realized that and I used to sponsor posts on Facebook as advertising, because that was how people found us. I would write a post, or I'd put a post on a Facebook page, and then you pay Facebook, like the presidential campaigns, you pay Facebook to promote it, and then people read it. And that's how advertising is often done on the internet. I stopped doing that because I don't like what Facebook is doing with the world, and I don't want to give Facebook money. And I'm glad I didn't put Amazon links on, because I also feel like Amazon has become a monopoly, and I even though I might have made a little bit of money from the Amazon links, having not put the Amazon links on, I don't have that connection to something that I'm not happy with now. Advertisements, I feel like the internet has become a marketplace. It's all about making money, the internet. And it's very hard to trust, where you are on the internet. Are my analytics being studied for commercial reasons? Are they trying to get inside my head and tell me things? And so I want to keep all commercial activity off Boom. And I want to keep all commercial activity off Booze Musings, because it needs to be a place of absolute authenticity, and it needs to be a place where we are able to completely trust one another without question. I don't ever want someone to wonder if the motivation behind my talking to them or somebody else talking to them is that we're going to make a buck off of it. So even, we've become a nonprofit association in the last month. We just became established as a nonprofit a month ago. And over the next year, we'll evolve what that really means for us and how we're going to use that status to raise money and what we're going to do with that. But it will always be the activity in the community, and the posts that are published on Bruce Musings will always be of the community, by the community, about the community, and that will never be a profession. It will always just be community and generosity of spirit. I think I'm in an absolutely unique position to be able to do that, and I'm thrilled that I can. So all the work that's gone into it has already gone into it, and I did it because I wanted to. And there it is. And now we can keep it commercial free.
That's amazing. And like you say, it's good to be able to have the flexibility to be able to decide on things yourself in the direction and not be beholden, and to just have that authenticity, which is amazing. And I just wondered what else sets Boom apart from many other alternatives for sober support out there.
Well, I actually, from the time that they told us that they were going to shut down the Legacy website for Hello Sunday Morning, which was where we were, that was 2017. From that day when I started setting up Boom, I haven't looked at other sites because it's taken a tremendous amount of energy to get us where we are. It's been pretty much 7 days a week for 4 years. And I have just felt all along the way that if I'm looking at what they're doing there, or what they're doing there, or what they're doing there, then I'm not focusing on what we're doing. And so I really can't tell you how it's different from other sites. I can tell you that our members who are on other sites, because people do many different things, and we encourage each other to do everything it takes. Go to AA if that works for you. If you want to do the 100-day challenge with Belle and tired of thinking of drinking, do it. If you want to do hip sobriety school, do it. If you want to go to Laura McCohen's daily Zoom meetings, do it. Do every single thing that you need to do to get your feet on the ground and keep your feet on the ground. So people who are doing all those other things tell me we're really special, but I can't tell you why. You would have to ask them.
Yeah, but I really love that kind of approach of, whatever you need, and it's the same approach I take as well, but that approach of whatever you need, go and get it. If you need this course, this program, this free support thing, if you want to go to AA, if you want to go to rehab, whatever works for you, just, get sober, I guess. You can do it and believe in yourself, and that's quite kind of the message.
And for most people, it takes more than one thing. It didn't take one book from me. It took 10. It took 10 books to help me find HSM. And then when I found HSM, there were 1,000 people I followed, and I read their stories every day. And one of the wonderful things about HSM was that because it wasn't, at the time that I was on it, there wasn't a guru, there wasn't, I talked about Belle, people talked about Alcoholics Anonymous and what they learned in AA. People talked about Ellen Carr, people talked about Annie Grace. Annie Grace was on the site, and when she published her book, and we read it in beta. And Lee Davey was there from the Alcohol Experiment. There were lots of people with different ideas, and we all shared the ideas, and that allows you to take responsibility for yourself. Because you're not saying, "Oh, great guru, make me sober,"
No, exactly, and that responsibility is really important to kind of take, and to sort of, like you say, take it on for us. I guess I'll speak from the I, for me to take it on my own shoulders, to choose my own direction in getting sober, my own path, my own action. Like you say, reading the book, we can't read books for anyone else, only they can read the book themselves. And taking that action is really important. And I just wondered how you feel that peer support model works on so many levels, and why does it work, and what you find so valuable about it, and what the community finds so valuable about it.
It works because when you have a large group of people who are all having the courage to make themselves vulnerable, which I think anonymity is really important for that purpose. So we do really encourage people to be anonymous. I don't want to know who you are, and I don't want you to be afraid if you're my neighbor that I figured out who you are. I want you to be able to talk about the deepest, darkest things that you need to talk about. So be John Doe with a Mickey Mouse face or whatever. And within that anonymity, people are able to have the courage to make themselves vulnerable in a way that they wouldn't have outside of a therapist's office, really. And then you have this group where whenever people share something, no matter how dark they may feel it is, somebody else has experienced it. And then, there's a commonality, and they can start talking about it. How did you heal from this? And I find there's so many things that I don't have the answers to. And there's so many experiences that I haven't had. But the larger the group becomes, as long as it's very carefully monitored and we make sure that that people feel safe and are respected, people can talk about whatever they need to talk about and find others who share that experience and begin to heal. I think it works for that reason. And I really think if you're dealing with peers, for all peers, it encourages self-respect and it encourages mutual respect and authenticity. And to me, my drinking problems destroyed my self-respect and they made me inauthentic. And the empowerment that I have in sobriety is that authenticity and self-respect.
Yeah. And this is a question from your audience, but they said, Booze Musings and the Boom community have made your sobriety journey into a job of sorts. What are the pros and cons of this, and how has this affected your family dynamic?
Oh, that's a good well, the pros and cons are kind of all mixed up together. My biggest fear when I stopped drinking was that I would lose my superpowers, because I bought the wine is my rocket fuel thing, hook, line, and sinker, swallowed it down. And I had been the woman who could do everything and did do everything and always had everything under control. So when I stopped drinking, I thought, I'm just going to be nothing now. I'm going to be this kind of easy does it sort of milquetoast blonde. And I thought, well, I have no choice. I have to just do it. And it took me a whole year, actually. I started Booze Musings when I was 11 months sober, because I had gotten something published in Huffington Post, and I thought, okay, this is it was called Redefining Me Time and Coming Out Sober. Those were the first two things I got in Huffington Post. And I thought, okay, let's do this thing. I knew nothing about the internet. I didn't know what a URL was. I went to Weeks, build your own website with the drag and drop stuff, websites for old ladies. And I got to work, and it was so stressful. I was still working at the time. I had my job was very special. I got a lot of time off in my job. So I might have a month off or a week off or a 4-day week or something like that. And so it gave me a lot of time to work on this. But I started working 60-hour weeks, really intense stress. That was a con, but it was also a pro, because it gave me I learned so much, and I'm still learning. And now I'm going to learn how to organize a nonprofit association, which I'm not very excited about, actually, but it has to be done. But I have Mark Lewis' Biology of Desire is my favorite book on addiction, because what I really like to think about now is not so much what was my addiction. I think there's a little video called Gold Nugget and Kiwi. Have you seen that?
No.
The little kiwi bird it's wonderful. Little tiny video. Little kiwi bird and a gold nugget. It is the perfect description of what addiction is. And I that's what addiction is. To me, recovery is the rainbow of, infinite possibilities. And I think that Mark Lewis's book, Biology of Desire, what he talks about in that book is what this project has done in my brain. It took the mess that was created by being addicted to alcohol and cigarettes, which I've also stopped using now, and rerouted it into this wonderful network of creativity and intellectual energy and just, personal growth. And the project, from the beginning, it has been such a huge challenge, and it's been challenge after challenge after challenge. Intellectual challenges, creative challenges, emotional challenges. And most of it, to me, is about the archiving of the posts. There are 600 on Blues Musings now. The archiving of the posts, presentation of the posts, and community, growing the community, stimulating the community, keeping the community evolving from what we were when HSM closed down. And it is just so rewarding. It's exhausting, but it's so rewarding, and it's I'm not sitting around wondering what I'm going to do with my retirement. I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, go. And it's exciting. It fulfills me. As far as my family is concerned, my husband is now helping me and has been since the beginning. When I needed a better computer, he gave me his, and it's something that he has gotten involved with, and that's good for us in our relationship. And I think it's good for my kids also.
And I wondered if you've provided loads of value in the interview already, but I wonder if there was any other resources or any direction you wanted to send people in. How can they find out more about you? Where do you want to send them?
Well, I think that if you search Booze Musings on the internet, it's just that easy, BOOZEMUSINGS, Booze Musings, that'll bring a whole bunch of stuff up. And it will take you to the blog, which is our public blog. It might take you to our new website for the nonprofit organization, which will also take you to the blog and take you to Boom. Our community is Boom Rethink the Drink, and it is open to all who follow our regulations. And those are my resources that I created. I think that the internet is absolutely chock full of resources now. And the thing that's wonderful is that there's something for everyone. I never actually did the 100-day challenge on Tired of Thinking About Drinking. I was on the waiting list for it when I found Hello Sunday Morning. But that's a wonderful program. And so is Hip Sobriety School. There's a certain style to Bell, Tired of Thinking About Drinking. There's another style to Hip Sobriety. And there are lots of Facebook groups. There's the Booze Free Brigade, which is really, really active on Facebook. The Share Recovery Network is terrific. He does a wonderful job. Just lots and lots of stuff out there.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you.
It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
Awesome. And thanks to our audience for listening, and please subscribe on iTunes. We have new episodes every Friday. Also leave a rating so we can get ranked better and help more people like you find us on iTunes. And also, if you love the episode, which I'm sure you did, please share the podcast on Facebook and all the social media platforms you feel comfortable doing. And thanks again. And as always, I wish you well on your journey in recovery.